Yes, very good evening to all of you and welcome to UPSC Prep. And as I can see, there are a lot of familiar faces and also a lot of new ones. And this is our first in the series of GS Advanced Mains Preparation, and we are starting with GS4 Ethics. Myself, Nimish Kapoor, uh, as few of you do know me, we've had classes before, and it's good to see you, all of you. And today, as I've said, we embark on a 18 lecture journey in understanding the basics of ethics. What is the importance of ethics? So this session will be a mixture of both. Initial orientation, understanding how to approach this subject, history of this subject, how people have scored up to 145 and why they have faltered around 80, 90, how to add value into the subject, and how this can be a big game changer for you. Many of you would be writing mains this year. And I tell you, in last 2 to 3 years, if you've seen the trends, you understand that ethics is where people are creating a gap and scoring big, or they are falling down. So we'll start with this lecture, and I want, as I've always done, to have an interactive class, as if we are communicating, as if in a live classroom. Okay. So, whatever questions and answers, the questions are there, I would request you to ask it in the chat section. Q&A, I may not be able to see, but there are already 1 to 2 questions. So, one question already has been asked before the class has started, which is Aryan has started, that I have a standard book and with this many pages, what should I do? I'll tackle everything. I'll tell you everything. Don't worry. I'll be covering every single thing. It's a long journey, 18 lectures in 3 weeks we are going to cover. And rest assured, every single topic of every part of the syllabus will be thoroughly covered. And we'll have an amazing time discussing on it. And it'll also be a time on reflecting on your own understanding of ethics. So let's start with this lecture and on a journey towards clearing the mains and those who are, also preparing for long term. This will make a very good fundamentals for you in ethics. So now let us look at how the ethics papers usually divide. So there's section A, section B. This is GS4. Okay, 250 marks overall. A lot of marks, and out of that, 130 marks is theoretical understanding of ethics and related concepts. So basic your understanding of ethics, various concepts in ethics, and various how people in history have taken been propagated those their own ethics and how you interpret it today. So all the theoretical part is covered in this. 120 marks majorly is the case studies. I'll not be taking case studies separately, but during these 18 lectures on theory, I'll be discussing certain case studies with you. Tushar is asking, how do I make notes for ethics, especially value examples? I'll be discussing that in the orientation, what all you need to do. Saket has a question. I've written mains last year and made my own notes. Should I make new ones? If you've made your own notes, don't make new ones. Supplement it with any value added information you come across these notes, one. And if you come across in certain newspapers and maybe new dimension in applied ethics, do include that. Nikhil has a question, which, sir, is it ideal to cover it in 3 weeks with doing optional and other GS subjects parallel? Again, I'll talk about that. How do we, it's not whole, like if I say we are going to cover it in 3 weeks, GS4, I do not mean that you're only going to do it. I'll tell you how do you parallelly also do the subjects and how GS4 has to be done, how ethics has to be approached. It's not one subject approach. I'll talk about that as well. Okay. So Janvi is asking, can you please throw some light on overall mains approach? Maybe at the end of the session, because right now, let's kick start the orientation particularly towards GS4. Okay. So as I've told, 130 mark is the theoretical, and this is very scoring. Writing means myself in 2014 and 15, I scored 145 to 150 in this paper, both the times. Okay. And because of which I was among the highest scorer in the GS, in the general studies portion. Whereas because of the optional, I faltered, but I'll be telling you the practical approach as well, how to score on the higher side. And how do you need to approach overall? So this is where this is an orientation lecture. And towards the end of the session, we'll be starting with the basics of ethics. And every single lecture at the end, 15 to 20 minutes will be devoted to live answer writing and feedback and right approach. This way, I want to make this entire ethics very interactive in nature so that you are not just sitting idle there looking at the lecture, but be more participative in it. Even those who are looking the recording later on should make sure that they can use that 5 to 10 minutes, which I give in between, to write your answers and then see the discussion being followed. Fine. So this is, I hope you understand, 130, 120 marks. This has been the approach. Why ethics as an exam? This is very important to know before jumping into your preparation. Why UPSC has included ethics as an exam? So 2013 is the year where they included it. So exam particularly is designed to select officers, right? Group A and Group B in certain, but primarily Group A. For countries' civil services, administrative, police, and various central services, including diplomatic services, which is Indian Foreign Services. Fine. So civil service is vital institution in the country. It's a steel frame, civil service. It serves as the administrative backbone of the nation, and country essentially operates on it. As I said, it's the steel frame. So day to day, even if so, the entire operation of the government, the executive function of the government is being run by the civil services. So why ethics exam? I'll create this relation and you'll understand very clearly that why I have to read these books, these notes. Why do I have to approach it this way? So let me discuss this. One more thing before I move further. Why also I am teaching ethics? One of the thing is that ethics is not just about someone who can teach you theoretical understanding. Someone who is a practical, like I've served nearly 6 years in as an assistant commandant in CISF, worked very closely with the district administration, central government, their agencies, various CAPFs, armed forces, and basically have a very and moved around 25 states in India, practically looking from the smallest of issues to the biggest of issues at macro level in the headquarters to the so basically having hands-on approach. I'll also share certain examples of what are the practical challenges and what usually a student tends to think in which dimension they deviate, but how they also need to think more practically. So those who don't know me, I'll also say so. My name again, Nimish Kapoor. I did my engineering in year 2012. After that, I worked in corporate in TCS for 2 years, then 6 years in CISF. Then I'm a full-time faculty now. So having very diverse experience, so that also I'll bring in what are the organizational ethics, what are the ethics in and probity in governance. Okay. Civil services officer play a pivotal role in policy formulation and execution, right? So they are the ones who are into policy making, execution on ground, being from the lowest entry level, if you're an IAS officer as a subdivisional magistrate, up to the secretary, or you can say cabinet secretary, which is the highest level. You are always and always either in the policy formulation or in the execution. Their roles have a profound and direct influence on citizens. So therefore, it is imperative that civil service maintain transparency and honesty. I tell you, being in ground, I've seen that if someone is transparent, honest, has integrity, and is dedicated towards the work, there has been tremendous progress there on ground in those public sector undertakings to the government functioning in those levels, be it the tehsil level to the district level to the state level. So all the experience also I'll keep sharing, and because being a multi-stakeholder the organization where I've worked in, I've had an experience to work with all kinds of governments to PSUs to various undertakings. So the officer should exemplify the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and meticulousness. One more thing, you may think that, okay, only 5 and 6 years of experience, how I can be handy to share experiences. Okay, CSF is the only uniformed service where you are not a company commander, but you are a supervising officer from day one. So I was chief of security of Paradeep Port. Around 500 personnel were reporting to me. So I was having additional charge of Tata Steel Kalinganagar, security of Tata Steel, which is currently the biggest plant of Tata Steel now, having the security of that entire plant with me. 250 CSF Jawans and men reporting to me there. Additionally, I was 7 months having 3 districts working with the local police in Assam during the NRC, um, ensuring law and order on ground. So working with the district police directly there. And also working with various central agencies, be it IB, be it the organizations like CBIED. You get that understanding because a lot of deputation also happens, and you get to have a good understanding of how things work. So I'll be discussing the practical challenges as I've told you. So this is why this ethics as an exam was put in. The officers should exemplify. But the problem, what happened was challenging being faced by civil services is that the civil services values have largely dwindled in recent times. So when we say recent times, it can be said last 20, 30, 40 years, the civil services hasn't performed up to the level it can perform. If I say only 10%, and that too very I would say 10% of civil services is actually performing. I'm being too generous because I've seen on ground how 90-85% of people do just do their work as an obligation. And then there is a lot of corruption on ground. So civil service values have dwindled. There are challenges, and public image has suffered a severe blow. So whenever you say that, okay, someone is from police, oh, in certain states, you'd say, okay, he must be earning over and above. Word earning is used because you start thinking this is by default something they are getting over and above. So your thought process has to be now very clear in approaching ethics that now this is not just a subject to clear this examination. This entire course, 18 lectures, which we'll do, take this as your training for being a good civil servant. One thing I assure you, if you're a good, sincere, and full of integrity, you'll be highly respected as a civil servant. You'll be, your opinions will be highly valued, and you'll, sooner or later, you would be rewarded in a different kind of a way. I left service after 6 years, as I've told you. But one thing till today, which I've earned, is the respect of people. Because if you something, if you can tell your people, to your men, to people on ground, if you lead by an example and say that, okay, this is not what I'm going to do, and I'm sure they'll follow, and they do. So this is not just what we are doing. Of course, we want to clear this examination. Remember this, that it is also a self-reflection of what kind of civil servant you want to be. So take this simultaneously that way. And I would also, expect questions from whatever way you think, how you think, what dimensions you think. Let the questions come in accordingly as and when I ask. So the officers are perceived as corrupt despite the presence of numerous upright and honest officers who prioritize service over self-interest. Now, there are very different levels. When I go into probity in governance, there are various levels of corruption. It's not just taking money. It's about, oh, I have not got this posting, so I'm unhappy. I won't do this job properly. The task given to. Oh, someone is coming to me, giving me gift. It's a very beautiful gift. It's just a gift. So we'll talk about levels of corruption as well. So that will also make you more aware of how to approach ethics. I don't want to make ethics bookish in nature. I'll be covering everything, even the theories I'll be covering, but in a way which is very interactive. So why this exam was eventually introduced? So the best way to tackle the problem was to nip it in the bud to prevent an issue or a flaw from escalating further. How to nip it in the bud? Let's bring in those people who are ethically strong. But is this taking an examination in ethics the right way to ensure that ethically strong people come into the examination? There have been instances, those who scored highest in ethics have actually been held in corruption. So it's not a foolproof way, but it's also a way where people at least understand the values. At the end of the day, it all comes down to an individual of how they reflect and how they inculcate those qualities in themselves. Yes, Aditya Prakash has given good examples here. Ashok Khemka, highly honest, officer, but so many, I think so till recently 36 transfers in the service, I think so. Bad example, Pooja Singhal. I'll not name particular, but these are explicit examples outside, so I don't want to name those in service anymore. But these are kinds of examples, but you should not quote by name in the examination until unless, especially the ones who are currently serving. Fine. So it is in this context that the ethics paper was introduced by UPSC in 2013. Now, why ethics and why there is a need? So, 2021, 22, government came out with, 21, government came out with Mission Karmayogi. And Mission Karmayogi is the scheme of capacity building of civil services in India. And if you read the document, it clearly says that a civil servant, how he or she should be. So, Saket is saying we can't see the chats of other members here. Yes, you can't. But I'll be, because I have to filter out the right questions because I don't want it to be a platform where it should be deviation at the same time. Mission Karmayogi said that how a civil servant should be. That's the government vision. That is the vision of how a civil servant should be. Proactive and polite. Aren't these ethical traits polite? Proactive means going over and above their own duty. Professional, very important. Progressive, energetic, enabling others. Transparent, very important. And tech enabled. Creative and constructive. Imaginative and innovative. Don't you think these qualities of a civil servant, which Mission Karmayogi specifically defines, includes various dimensions of ethics? This is what, if you integrate this, so I very clearly say to my students, if you have these qualities, and you cannot have it overnight, but if you integrate these over a period of time, the process of the examination will automatically select you. Of course, there are certain deviations, but more or less, because once you become proactive, polite, imaginative, innovative, creative, I assure you, you will be selected in this examination. And this is where UPSC also have been given specific guidelines to frame the examinations on these lines. Sahil is asking, if an officer is transferred so many times, how will she be able to work? Let's say And this is common thing. Okay, transfers. But when I'm transferred, I am given a charge, I'm given a task. Now, howsoever big a task is, howsoever small a task is, my thing, my agenda, my obligation is to do that honestly with full enthusiasm and making sure that that work is done very nicely. Even though if I am that for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So, I feel that sooner or later, you might be initially be given a lot of stress or you feel harassed. But the kind of satisfaction you can derive, it is much more above than the kind of posting and the amount of uh, corrupt money you're making. Nothing can surpass the satisfaction of a job well done. Rest assured. And many of you would join civil services in future. And remember this: if the smile on a face of someone who's benefited from the proactive work you've done on ground and right approach you took, those smiles will stay with you for a lifetime, and the satisfaction you'll derive from them is much, much more than anything you can get. So, why ethics is important? Because this is a starting point for you, the reason for you to volunteer for civil services. Even if you ask today that can anyone, why don't government go into the best institutes in the country and recruit the toppers into civil services? Because they are not looking for toppers. They are not looking for highly educated. Of course, they have a minimum qualification, but they are looking for highly driven, ethically strong, and dedicated and motivated civil servants. This is where if ethics comes so handy and important. So many have these qualities but don't get chance to serve. Komal is saying, but I personally feel that in some form or the other, you always do. If you're ethically strong, you can in smaller or larger way, whatever, but you can. I'm not saying that you might not be able to serve at the highest level what you wanted for yourself, but again, uh, still you can serve. I'll share certain examples gradually. Garima is asking, should we anyway give examples of any cases in case such questions are any relatable? Of course, you should give examples where the major corruption cases have been in news, not naming individuals in per se, but you can, give examples of certain areas like in past coal scam, CAG has pointed out this and this challenges in combating corruption, young civil servants indulging in any nefarious or corrupt activities, give examples. But you can say, so one of the SDMs recently posted to like one of the sub tehsil in this district was accused as per reports like that. But I don't want to name a but that may impact and give you, when I specify something, negative mark. So be careful. But yes, in history, you can give endless examples like Indian national movement, this. Right. Sahil Gautam is electoral bond. So Supreme Court judgment, uh, what they quoted, you can give that. Supreme Court judgment, quote, you can give that. So these are, so why ethics is important? Because all these states, the government is expecting you to come with in the civil services, and also the existing civil servants, they are working on the capacity development. So this is where, ethics becomes so important. How to approach ethics? So firstly, understand the syllabus, which we'll talk about. So familiarize yourself with UPSC syllabus for ethics, integrity, and aptitude to understand the scope and topics covered in the exam. Okay, what is the scope? What are the dimensions of the topics? And so syllabus is a starting point. You should know the syllabus. What are the topics? Have I covered all the topics? Am I aware about all those topics? That is one. Conceptual clarity. So this is where first thing is this course will come out. Ensure that you have a good conceptual clarity. Build a strong foundation by understanding the fundamental concepts of ethics, integrity, and aptitude along with their application in real life scenarios. Third is study material. So here refer to standard textbook. So here I would say I'll come to the study material as well. But for you, for all the aspirants who are targeting this year, if not this year, then next year, this course is in form of notes only. So this is most important because this will help you revise all the important concepts with major examples. Rest your own value added topics we'll also try to add, but then at your own level, your own notes in past, whatever you've collected, how you've approached, how you've seen certain examples, all those would also matter. So value added content. And to be honest, this is not a subject where I have to read 4 books, 5 books. Here, my understanding and my ability to comprehend, present, and include examples and data is more than enough. So study material. So you can have one reference book, whichever you follow, which I'll talk about. But these notes are very important because this will cover holistically. 18 lectures will cover every dimension. And it is very easy to understand and comprehend because those who've gone through my modern history or current affairs would understand that how I approach and how do I create the content that it will be very easy for you in minimum time to have maximum output from this subject. Then after this, we'll case studies and that will be parallelly done, right? In the schedule, you have case studies lectures as well. So practice solving case studies based on ethical dilemmas and real life situations to develop. So how do you also integrate this approach is reading an article where corruption, challenges, disaster management related, various issues have happened and what have been the district or state government authorities or the central government authorities done in those cases. Try to understand that and see that what different you would have done or what you would have thought in first instance, and then how would you have approached. So the case study is very, very important and very scoring if you're practical. But many students I've come across when I've also checked their papers is that they want to be ideal. They say, okay, we'll do everything. So let's say there's a disaster in my district. I'm a district magistrate. I'll call NDMA, come. Okay. And you should be there in 24 hours. I'll do this, I'll do that. But you have to understand, when you're talking about, firstly, you have to understand what is the extent of your power. What is the limitation to the extent of your power? Am I following the right way? So, once those who are in the government, if any one of you is, that there is an entire dark system through proper channel. Very important word in entire government, through proper channel. Even if I'm a district magistrate, I may directly contact divisional commissioner or may contact the disaster management secretary of the state to ask the NDMA to come. Just a small change, but you know the process. So case studies will help you understand, come to a right approach, and also reading newspapers and such issues will help you to decipher what usually the government approach is. Okay. Yeah. Current affairs. That is where case studies directly complement current affairs. Stay updated with the recent developments, ethical issues. So when I say ethical issues, today ethics is not limited to individual or even regional or national level. It is now international. I'll show you the paper of 2023 also. International ethics, AI ethics. These are all applied ethics parts. So the gestures don't, so it picks up the gestures. So don't, reflect on that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that current affairs are very, very important. Stay updated with the recent developments, ethical issues and case studies relevant to governance, public administration, social issues, international relations. Link current affairs with the ethical principles and analyze their implications. Previous year papers, very important. And that is where what we've done in this course in 18 lectures is that every day 1 to 2 questions you will be having live answer writing, and that I've just picked out from previous year papers only. So last 10, 11 years papers, I picked up the questions depending on the topics which we do every day. I'll be asking in the live class, telling you to write it down, and then we'll have an open discussion for 5 minutes where you will be bringing in your points. We'll be writing those points, and then what should be the right approach, so that at the end of the course, it's not just about the content you have, it's about the writing practice you have, and it's also about the right approach you should have. Okay. So the previous year papers also you should have with you, solve them, and do not take any solved as the right approach. Okay. In any book or any website, they've solved this is the fine. See, there can be 10 right answers, but 10 different approaches in ethics. It's also, so one of the biggest thing is in ethics is, in our entire approach of ethics is, what about you? Means, where are you in this? I'll talk about this. That there should be your reflection on those ideals, your own example. Maybe your own life small example can also be shared as a very important point in that. This is where examiner has usually appreciate someone who's brought in themselves in those. They don't like too much theory, because remember, this is general studies paper. This is not something core ethics. They don't want to check the exact theories you know. They want to know that do you understand this concept, and have you realized this? Have you used it in your life? So that is very important. Writing practice. So this is what also we will be doing. Fine. Are you with me till now here? Okay. Moving forward, so mock tests and feedback, which will be there, ethical dilemmas, you should also question yourself, also engage in discussions and debates on ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas, contemporary issues, maybe with your peers, friends, family, on the group right here. And that way, ethical dilemmas, your understanding the dimensions can also broaden. And revision. Regularly revise the key concepts, theories, and case studies to reinforce learning and retain information effectively. This is the approach which one should have. So Aditya is saying, sir, doesn't giving example for self will make it superficial? It depends upon the question, Aditya. So if the question is on what about honesty in your like they've asked the question on UPSC has asked a question on honesty. You can bring a simple life instance about honesty from your life. I'm not saying include everything from your life in each and every question. That is not expected of you. What is expected is that you, here and wherever the personal touch can be given, there you may come in, because that will add personal. But everywhere it is not required, because there are certain questions which broader perspective is required. Okay. This subject will also extremely help you in essay ethics. What paper is about and what should be done. So this paper is about your understanding of ethics. It's not about the ethics. It's about your understanding of ethics. This paper should reflect your ethics, right? Okay, how do you look at honesty? How do you look at integrity? How do you look at morality? How do you look at probity in governance? Of course, the concepts will be taught, but you might also have more dimensions based on your understanding. For example, some people accepting gifts in general from well-wishers may not be considered as ethically incorrect in day-to-day life. But at a responsible post, taking gifts might be considered as lack of integrity, corruption. So it's about your understanding, your ethics. This, like honesty. So some people might say that being upright about everything to anyone, but some say might also be about being respectful at the same time, and maybe sometimes restraining them yourself so that other person does not feel bad about, right, being polite. So it's also about you, because at the end of the day this paper should reflect you, and that is why the examiner would give you more marks. Surya is asking, so are we expected to make running notes or take out printouts of your lectures and add value as and when required? So take these PDFs, read about it, and have a supplementary booklet or book with you. I don't want you to take printouts of all these lectures. If you're adept in PDF reading, then fine. If you feel okay, then take out black and white printouts of these. Add some like small paper, one page, any value added you can attach along with the respective topic. But I don't see this subject to be like reading 600-page book and then separately so much. This is not like that. I'll talk about, again, this is where I'm going to come very soon, of how this subject has to be approached. This paper is not being ideal but also practical. As I've said, you want to do good, but you also have to look at the practical challenges on ground. Understand that. So this paper is also being about being practical. Disaster management, a disaster has happened in the remote call, but you have to be practical that the terrain may be difficult to reach in this much time. What are the backups you have? Preparedness. So ideal is, of course, we will immediately leave and reach the spot, but reach the spot is not in your hand when the access may not be there with you. Abhimanyu is asking a very interesting question. Why a person has to hesitate when he is honest and think about their feelings, because in the end, it is for their growth. What if we are soft and don't tell them the truth? It's not about being truth. See, now I'll give you an example from my own service. There were people who were mentally, in services, you would have heard a lot of suicides happen. So we had filtered out a list of Jawans who were mentally not in a good condition. And with the history in my hand, you have to deal with them. So there were certain cases where a little indiscipline happened. So there were two ways. I could have reacted very angrily, but I know that this thing hasn't worked in past. So telling them in a more courteous way, understanding, showing, empathizing with them. Because mental health, those who've gone through, they understand that sometimes being empathetic, number one, may be very important. And then slowly through talks, maybe not very direct, very indirect way, you tell that may not be accepted. And this is how we are adept to work. And with this approach, I've seen drastic changes in people. Created various teams, worked with teams, and had some excellent results you can't believe. And ethics, is about continuous evolution as well. Once you're in the service, it's also about hit and trial. That can I be more firm with these? Can I be more gentle? Like understanding people. You also have to look at age. You're a 25, 26-year-old. Let's say you're a subdivisional magistrate. Let's say a tehsildar, 59-year-old, comes to you. You are understanding your job also at the same. The person in front of you might be corrupt. But you have, at the same time, respect their experience. You are an IPS officer within 4 to 5 years. In forces, in army, in uniformed, senior constable or senior havaldar are usually termed as major. They are not major, but they are, with respect, we call them major because of the kind of service they've given. Yes, In forces, they are Subedar Major, but I'm talking about Havaldars also. Havaldars, a senior head constable, we'll call them Major. Major, please come here. Major, idhar aao. Not because they are major. Of course, there is the post called Company Havaldar Major or Battalion Havaldar Major. These are separate. But it's about how you deal. At the end of the day, what do you want? It's not your personal ego. It's the work. How the work has to be done. Being soft, being polite, being manipulative, but being honest, of course. At the end of the day, what matters? No one will ask you, oh, okay, were you strict with them or were you soft with them? They'll ask you, your seniors, was the work done or not? Yes, this is important. Jyotsna is asking, what can be the resources for collecting ethics examples apart from newspaper? We'll talk about. Examiner should see what X stands for. What is you standing for? If you're ethically strong, you will have your stands also very clear, crisp. If you're an honest person, the same will reflect in your answers and you should be awarded good marks. Remember, we are all aspiring to become civil servants, and thus our outlook, dialogues, and thought process should reflect some responsibility. Our approach will be discussion-based classes will be there, focus on conceptual clarity, practical challenges and issues discussed, 10-minute answer writing at the end of every class, PYQs discussion, focused on applied ethics to everything, all dimensions will be discussed. What this paper is not about and what should not be done. So you need not study ethics for hours and hours daily like you do for GS. And this is where the first question asked was, if 3 weeks are being given for this subject, means 3 weeks, then when do we do others? Remember, this class of 2 hours plus maximum 1 hour revision every day. That's it. And I assure you, if you will not get above average score, you will easily, because now this even, so you don't have to study for hour. Ethics is not where I have to cram, where I have to remember stuff. I have to understand. You should not study complex ethical jargons. I can endlessly go into very complicated concepts, but that is not what is important for it. In your answers, if I've included complicated ethical jargons are those words, which is hard to, very difficult to understand and have to go into much detail. So an examiner will respect your clarity of answer, understanding, not your how much difficult concepts I'm using there. Very simple answers I've scored brilliantly. People who've used so many Western philosophies, Indian philosophies in their answer without showing their understanding of it have not scored well. You should not start mugging up quotes, thinkers. Of course, they are necessary. Of course, they are necessary. But when I start mugging them up, okay, this may be asked, this. Rather than understanding a quote is more important. Whichever I remember from my understanding of 1 year, 2 years of studies, that will remain with me in any case. But if I pick up a book and just start reading 100 quotes, it might be important for essay, but not necessarily for ethics. So you not start mugging up quotes, thinkers, catchy lines just to impress examiner. So again, this should not be done just to impress. See, examiners are very clever. Those who are day night checking one thing only, they'll know, okay, this is that person being, they can easily see if there are 2 people standing in front of us. And after few years of service, you'll realize 2-3 years of service, you'll realize 2 people saying 2 different. You'll immediately understand who's correct, who's incorrect, who's bluffing, and who's being honest. Same way, examiners will catch up easily that how you are approaching. You think, okay, I'll use these things, but just to impress examiner, no. Do not force morality in your answers. It is hard to do and looks artificial. I'll do this. I'll personally go and do this. I'll take personal interest in this. It might look good, but then again, you have to understand limitation of your post. How much work is already there on your hand? How will you, what is the practical way which the civil servants usually do? The better way, the good way. Okay. So do not force morality in your answer. So let's look at syllabus. What are the important dimensions in syllabus? I've spent some time here in this first part. So tentatively around 4 lectures, including today, of course, the orientation one, including today and the next 3, I'll be spending here. Okay, which is ethics and human interface. Maybe 5 lectures I'll take. So attitude is then, so ethics human interface includes, this is the very technical part, basic part. So essence, determinants, consequences of ethics, dimension of ethics, ethics in private public relations, human values, lessons from the lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers, administrators, role of family, society, and educational institutions in inculcating values. Then there is attitude topic, content, structure, function, its influence and relation and with thought and behavior, moral and political attitude, social influence, and persuasion. Then there is aptitude and foundational values of civil service, integrity, impartiality, and non-partisanship, objectivity, dedication to public service, empathy, tolerance, compassion towards weaker sections. Then there's emotional intelligence, concepts and the utilities and application in administration and governance. Thereafter, we have contribution of moral thinkers and philosophers from India and the world. Then there's public civil service values and ethics in public administration, status and problems, ethical concerns, all these topics. Then the next chapter is probity in governance. Because see, you are going to go in governance and we have to look from ethics from governance point of view. So that would be the major chunk we'll be looking at. But we have to start from individual, societal, organizational, attitude, emotional intelligence, all those things has to be crossed before we go into the ethics in the public administration. Then there is case studies on the above issues. Fine. So now let's look at again the lecture plan as already with there. So today I've covered the, I'm covering orientation first, and then I'll go into basics of ethics. What is ethics? What is not ethics? Essence, determinants, consequences of ethics. In the tomorrow lecture, Western religious ethics and ethics in India. Then we'll talk about important theories and principles in ethics, and also the definitions, important definitions, so that before we jump onto the topic, at least you're clear with certain ideas. Then 4 branches of ethics, ethics in public, private life, human values, its meaning and importance, classification of values, role of educational institutions, parent teachers, lessons from the lives of teachings, right? All these. Then attitude, we have then aptitude of foundational values for civil service, part 1, part 2. All these are lectures. So we, as I've told you, we'll be covering every single thing. So here we are covering the syllabus, but there is one very important topic, applied ethics. And PYQ's discussion, if any important area. So we'll be spending 1 hour specifically on PY discussion, PYQ discussion, and 1 hour on applied ethics, dimensions, new dimensions of ethics, AI ethics, environmental ethics, business ethics, etc. Okay. So this is what how this entire syllabus will be covered. Now, what are the sources? So it's a 2 things. So before starting, you can see these videos. This is a link. So after this lecture, immediately after the lecture, which is in 2 to 3 minutes, on the course page, you can see the presentation in the PDF form, and you can download this immediately. So after every lecture, within 5 minutes, you can have this entire lecture, and for the revision, this particular videos, very important, very interesting videos. 12 total videos are there, right? And this will, so this is by Michael Sandel. So these are YouTube videos by Michael Sandel, and very good on ethics. At least the first one you must see. So this will provide you real insight into what exactly is the domain of ethics and morality. It will radically broaden your thinking horizon. So just to, get yourself going into the subject. Pick any book, G. Subbarao, lexicon, or further, if you talk about the sources. Now this is important. So I've already told, so justice course, 12 lectures are there. DK Balaji is also a very interesting book, ethics book, selective reading based on what you need. Now it's very important, whichever book you pick, it's very important, selective. So what I have tried to do is in my entire lecture series, I've covered every single topic, whatever you need to know from basic point of view. But if there's something you feel that, okay, in this book, some example might be better, whichever book you're referring, you might pick it up. Or for example, that, okay, in the lecture I've covered till here, but I feel I need to go a little more in detail, then you may refer. Then ethical terms, explain terms in your own words, not exact definitions. So in exam, when they said, okay, what is honesty? It does not necessarily has to be honesty definition of a dictionary. No, it has to be your definition. Of course, it shouldn't be a different meaning altogether. Honesty shouldn't be like, okay, it is meaning something else altogether. No. At least closer to what the dictionary definition is, but at least in your own words. And also build examples. Example, justice, integrity, honesty. Diagrams. So make diagrams and keep separate compilation of diagrams that can be used. So I've tried to use certain diagrams in that can be used by you. Case studies. Frameworks for case studies, practicing case studies should be important. Second ARC report also will be referring. Fourth report on ethics and governance will be included, especially in the governance part. I'll be covering this in detail. What is a must-do approach? So keep an eye on latest developments. Again, I'm reiterating in India and the world on ethical issues like wars, right? I'll talk about. Make a note of them and write your personal viewpoint on them. To give you example of an ethical issue, so disarmament issues between nations, like nuclear disarmament, etc. Global wars, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas. Earlier there was Armenia, Azerbaijan, euthanasia and its practice in India, etc. Means these are kind of ethical issues. So you need to look at these. What are the ethical issues? Make a note of them, write a personal viewpoint on them. This can be helpful, handy. At the end, when I said applied ethics, I'll be discussing international IR ethics, ethics in IR, AI ethics, environmental ethics. So we'll be going into those dimensions. Okay. So I'm just why I have included this in. I'm not going to discuss the paper, but I have to tell you that how the paper is. Of course, many of you have written mains. Many of you have seen this paper. But looking at the entire orientation and coming to this point, I want you to again look at it and see that in every question there would be something about you or your understanding. For example, I'll quickly read. What do you understand by moral integrity and professional efficiency in context of corporate governance in India? Illustrate with suitable example. So current affairs. What do you understand? That is your understanding. Current affairs, your understanding, concepts of corporate governance, moral integrity, professional efficiency. Everything is mixed. You can see. And suitable examples from current affairs. International aid is an accepted form of helping resource-challenged nations. Comment on ethics in contemporary international aid. Support your answer with suitable examples. Again, a question on international IR ethics, ethics in IR, about human rights. Many dimensions again being touched. So applied ethics is also there. The general basic concepts of ethics will also be used, like morality, like common good, like India's agenda of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, right? So very interesting. Surya is asking, can I quote Chanda Koch's example in the previous question on corporate governance? You can quote that they have been private companies. Yes, she was accused. So yes, you can name her. But when I'm saying public servant should not be named directly, who is serving or those. So Chanda Kochar, again, if the cases are sub judice, then you should not name anyone. If anyone has been convicted rather than just accused, then you may. So a very interesting, Komal has pointed out that like what government is doing with Maldives, despite the India Out campaign and the kind of campaign they've shown, this shows that international aid, India is providing aid to the resource challenged nation, including Maldives, and this shows that. So this is a very good example. See how it is being applied, right? So this way, very good. So this is the kind of thinking I want you to have. Corruption is the manifestation of failure of core values. Again, core values is the basic concepts, core values in the society. Now we have to understand what are those core values in your opinion. What measures can be adopted to uplift the core values in the society, in your opinion? In the context of work environment, differentiate between coercion and undue influence with suitable example. Now tell me, if we look at the syllabus and if we go into the very core concepts, how, if you've spent 8 hours a day reading about just ethics and remembering those, how helpful it would have been in the exam? I don't think so too much. Rather than spending 2 hours on lecture, then writing answer pre-vacues, 1 hour of revision and value addition, I think so is more than enough for the subject. Pratik is asking, sir, can you suggest some sources of current affairs that are related to ethics exam? When I talk about ethics, particularly there might be, it would be difficult to point out any. Yes, betterindia.com is a good example. Sahil has told. Betterindia.com, very good. But also, whichever newspaper you're reading, every day something or the other you come across, which might be used as an example. So whenever you go through, just read the headlines of all the news. I'm sure you're reading the ones which are important for the exam perspective, but at least go through the heading of all and you might find some local issue, but a good solution or a good, approach by a local administration, particular issue. Example for IR ethics. So for international ethics, so there was this question also, so I often recommend. So in this books, like for example, from Indian perspective, why Bharat matters. I know you don't have time to read all this, but if you can read the gist of such books, so the references from Tirukural, Mahabharat, Ramayana by the foreign ministers been given, and also when we'll be reading the core concepts on religious ethics, that dimension. Now, whenever we go into it, you have to, whenever you also revise it, try to create parallels in various environment, international relations, etc. at your own level. That will help you be extremely creative in the exam as well. Right. So again, when we look at further questions, differentiate moral intuition and moral reasoning from moral reasoning with suitable examples. In conscience, a more reliable guide when compared to laws. Is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulations in the context of ethical decision making? Discuss. Probity is essential for an effective system of governance and socio-economic development. Discuss. What were the major teachings of Guru Nanak? Explain their relevance in the contemporary world. Explain the term social capital. How does it enhance good governance? Given below 3 quotations of great thinkers, what do each of these quotations convey to you in the present context? In present context, what does it convey to you in present context? The simplest act of kindness are by far more powerful than a thousand heads bowing in prayer. Very good opportunity to have personal example. Why not? Understand the opportunities where you can jump in and try to, because at the end they can see it's not just about do you know ethics, how are you ethically, examiner should, and then accordingly, if there's a personal element, if my own understanding is also there, out of this 10-mark question, if you've balanced it well, I may give you 6.5, which is very high mark in this question. To awaken the people, it is the women who must be awakened. Once she is on the move, the family moves, the village moves, the nation moves. Okay. Do not hate anybody, because that hatred that comes out from you must in the long run come back to you. So if you love, that love will come back to you, completing the circle. Swami Vivekananda. So this questions give you a wonderful opportunity. It is more like of a blank canvas where you can bring in your examples, the examples you've read from the newspaper, examples which you've read from the history, examples which are there currently. Like, for example, do not hate anybody, because that now this very good example in international relations was Nelson Mandela when he was released from the prison after years in apartheid regime in jail. He didn't hate. In fact, uh, the government at that time, he forgave them. And in fact, that was one of the best way to bring the nation together of South Africa. So examples like, what you've read in past, what you're reading, and maybe your personal life, but that should relate with the quote. Similarly, the subsequent questions. What really matters for success, character, happiness, and lifelong achievements is a definite set of emotional skills. Your emotional. So what I'm clearly seeing and what we clearly all are seeing is we just need to have a very good hold on basic concepts. That's it. Number one. And then about those concepts, what is our understanding? Maybe write something about that on our own. And then also have a little bit of examples. Sometimes examples may not be immediately coming to your mind, but when you look at a question, something from your past, something you've read in past may click at that time. Why I was able to score 145 plus both the times is that I made it as if it is my ethics exam. It wants to see. So to be honest, I didn't spend too much time then reading ethics basics. So I felt that at the end of the exam, I felt that I was able to present my personality much better. Typical structure of an answer, I'll be talking, Anju, at the end of the where I'll put you a question and how to approach that question. So Aryan is again, should I make notes for ethics or not? I've again answered it already. Take this as your notes. If you have your notes of past, then add value. Use this to add value to that one. If you don't have notes from past, or if you have a reference book, have a reference book ready. Read this first. If you think that there are certain sections which I might need to glance, look at that. But I assure you, everything will be covered as per the syllabus. But if there's any value addition, it won't be in the book itself. You would have to do that on your own, a little extra. I'll try to provide it as much as I can during our lectures in recent examples and all. But from your own level also, you might have to put a little extra effort. But as I said, this is not a paper where you have to put 8 hours a day. 2 hours of this lecture, half hour, 45 minutes revision, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes value addition. Can we change timing to 6? No, it won't be possible because there's a session 4 to 6. So there are batches where parallel 2 classes cannot run. Means, for example, the same batch would have sessions in future 4 to 6 and then 7 to 9. Won't be possible. Okay. Right. So if you've seen the questions, you understand that this is not a very difficult exam to approach. Problem is our fundamentals are very weak. And we do not see that our approach becomes faltered majority of time. That is why 85, 90. But if you understand a question and do not go too much into core theories and all. So nowhere there has been Kant's theory, Darwin's, this, that, of course we'll read it, but then they've not gone into very core part of theories. So before I jump into ethics and we start with our first part, ethics and human interface, let's have 2 minutes of break for water. In the meantime, if there's any question, you can write it on the screen. I'll read it and answer that. In the meantime, you can just have 2 minutes break. We'll resume in 2 minutes. I hope with respect to orientation, you understood of the way it has to be approached, ethics. Few students have become on offline. I believe they are interested in watching India-Australia match today. How do we connect with mentor? You can directly contact us at upscprep.com. You write it. You'll be scheduled accordingly. I want examples from you coming in whenever we discuss anything, because that way, everyone can understand various dimensions. Because see, I cannot discuss all the dimensions, and it is practically humanly impossible. But it does not mean that there aren't more dimensions to a particular issue, problem, challenge, ethical dilemma. So that is where, as we move on, it has to be a two-way communication. Means I'll teach you everything, make you understand, take you into various dimensions. But if there's any doubt or any point you feel that I want to share, then please write it down. If I feel that is very good, I'll name you and tell you that this point is excellent. Tanishka is asking, sir, if I refer the lexicon book, how to approach that book? Firstly, go through these lectures. This will really simplify your work extremely, because I am just making it that way, which will, because lexicon 2014, when I read it, it is a very repulsive book, very thick one. You just see pages and pages of just content, and you start feeling, okay, how do I approach it? But if you go through first these concepts and then look at that book chapter wise, the way we've covered, then if there's anything else which you feel is good point which might not have been discussed, then just read those areas, scan through rather than reading every single point. Tushar, sir, you said that you will tell in the orientation like about note making. I'll start today itself since I already have my detailed notes, but not these definition one. Okay. Komal saying a few days back, an IPS officer committed suicide. Yes. Emotional intelligence. Yes, very good example. An Assam cadre IPS officer, DIG level officer, who was Home Secretary in Assam, committed suicide because his wife died of cancer. And very beautiful, because once we go into emotional intelligence, then very good point, Komal. This is how you need to look at. So I know some students have already read the GS4 and made notes out of it, but I haven't studied this subject yet. Don't be afraid, Pratik, at all. I went into this exam with 10 hours of study the first time when I went. And I scored, as I said, 145. Again, this is about your application in the exam. I also know people who've read this 3-4 times over, scored 85, 90. So it's, again, I'm saying is the right orientation is very important. That is why I've spent 1 hour on just the orientation before jumping into the content. They want to see you in it, your understanding of it, your examples. What does this mean to you? There are a lot of questions in Q&A. I'm going to read it, but I again request you to those who have got questions should ask in the chat section. So Rashmi is, I enjoy ethics as a subject, but I tend to get lost while reading lexicon. Yeah, that I've told you. It's a very bulky book. You tend to get lost there. So I'm planning for 2025 attempts. So I write test later. I'm not saying you write test later. You can write daily answer for sure every single day starting today. But test later on, yes, you can. But as of now, daily you must. So can ethics answer can be written in patterns or diagram, just not with all theory? Yes, it can be, Jyoti. Can be written in the patterns, diagrams, not just theory. It is about how you balance it. That diagram should at least explain what you're trying to say. So Shivani is asking, so can we quote certain examples in the answer from our own experiences? As I've told you, sure. Okay, these are some of the queries which I've taken up here in the Q&A. Rushant is asking, will this batch mentorship? You can ask this query on mail. Tanishka, right. I'm working candidate planning to stick to lecture and notes provided. Yeah, is Sophia is asking that is good enough for you. That will take care of. If you're working candidate, this lecture and this content is good enough. Nothing to worry. But if you're just wherever you've come across content for GS preparation, try to just also keep ethics in mind so that you can understand where I can use certain quotes. But this is good enough. Shweta, today's IEA paper thing, where to use and how to use, I don't know. I didn't get your question, Shweta. Fine. Let's start with ethics and human interface, which is the first topic. And today we'll just know about firstly, what is ethics? Ethics is the study of human actions. It's the study of human actions from point of view. So it's study of human actions from point of view of right or wrong. So it's just a study of human actions that from the point of view it's rightfulness or wrongfulness or right, is it right or wrong? It is a science about what humans ought to be. It's very self-explanatory, shouldn't it? It is a science. Ethics is a science about what humans ought to be or should be. It is derived from a Greek word ethos, which means character or habit or culture. It represents code of conduct that we expect of others and ourselves. So I've got, sir, sound is not working. Can you please confirm it is working or not? It is. Okay, thank you for confirmation, because there was this query of it is not working. So it represents a code of conduct. Ethics represent a code of conduct that we expect of others at the same time from ourselves. Not just others, but from ourselves as well. So this is what broadly defines entire ethics. So what ethics is about? It's about moral values. It's about human behavior. So this is the kind of diagrams you can use. Okay. So I've tried to make it in a way wherever you can make diagrams, you can replicate it. What ethics is about? Moral values. It's about human behavior. It's philosophy of for good life. So of good life or for good life. It's about moral choices. It's about rules and regulations. Following that. Ethics means follow, not follow, unethical, ethical, but still ethics is about rules and regulations. It's principles of right conduct. This all is what ethics is about. What are the example of ethics in day-to-day life? I'll again come to ethical behavior later on and unethical behavior examples. But as of now, what are the examples of ethics in day-to-day life? Teacher being fair with all students and not showing favoritism. Many of you would have gone through this in school that, oh, he or she is unfair with me or is partial with the other. But being a teacher, ethical teacher is showing no favoritism. Police officer being honest, doing his or her duty with integrity and dedication. Integrity is a very important word. Honesty. Judge ensuring justice prevails without indulging in any malpractice of taking bribes to decide cases, etc. Just few examples. What ethics is not? Ethics is not about feeling something right or wrong. I feel this is right. I feel this is wrong. This is not ethics. It's not about feeling. Okay. It's about, yeah, this is correct. This is incorrect. Right? Ethics is not about feeling something right or wrong. Ethics are not values. So this is the diagram again. All ethical behavior are part of values, but all values are not part of ethical. So values are standards of behavior. For example, following caste rules by some is a value for someone, but it is not ethical. And for me, value is like, oh, it's my family value that, you have to get work done by being rude. means being strong, being unabashedly loud and very aggressive. These values are something which are it cannot be so all ethics. So ethical behavior is a part of value system, but all values are not part of ethics. So this is a very important diagram here. So ethics are not values. So values are standards of behavior that may or may not be standard, right? Not standard. I'm angry. I've been told that until unless you're not angry, the work is not done. A value I have, but might not be a standard, which means that they can vary from person to person. But in the case of ethics, there's a universally established standard of human conduct. It should be noted that ethics is based on values, but every value is not ethical. Yeah. Hope you understood. What ethics is not? Ethics is not social norms. Social norms are based on customs and traditions of particular society, which means they are not universal in nature. So social norms, see, society decides, and there are multiple small societal groups. So like some societies, joint family is a social norm, right? But if you go into Western world, nuclear family is a social norm. So ethics is not social norm. Aditya asking, so can we say all ethical values are constitutional and vice versa? So we are not talking constitution as of now. Constitution is a source of ethics. It's not ethics. So Aditya, don't confuse yourself. As of now, all ethical values. So all ethical, we cannot say, let's come to the constitution part, which I'll do, and then we'll discuss. But don't get confused here. Okay. So I hope you got ethics is not social norms. Ethics is not religion. Of course, it is inspired by religion. Of course, we are inspired to be ethical because of religion. But ethics is not religion. Why? Because religion is based on faith, where the scope of reasoning is limited. Moreover, religion is specific to particular community. So as per this, so a particular community follows a particular religion and the ethics of that religion. But it is not universal, right? So which deprives it of universality. But ethics is based on reason and universal in nature. Whereas ethics is based on reason and universal in nature. But religion precedes ethics. Hence, ethics draws most of. See, religion has been there for hundreds and thousands of years. And it precedes the concept of ethics. So, ethics draws most of these principles from religion itself. So, RN is saying, so ethics is rationality. I'd say ethics are rational and reasoned. Okay. So, let's look at some of the. Firstly, ethics is not social norms. So, ethics like equality. There might be social norms of caste or gender inequality, right? Where women may not be allowed to go out for work. Whereas ethics talks about equality. Fine. So, it is not exactly, but there might be certain social norms which are ethical. Fine. So, this is where this is how you can draw a diagram on that ethics is not social norms, but there might be certain social norms which are ethical. Similarly, religion is not ethics, but there are religions which have, inspire ethical value. Christianity talks about compassion, forgiveness. Jainism talks about satya, ahimsa. Buddhism talks about the middle path. Hinduism, vasudhaiva kutumbakam, nishkam karma, satyamev jayate. Islam talks about equality, brotherhood. So these are how religion inspires ethics or helps in deriving ethics, but it is not ethics. Okay. What ethics is not? Ethics is also not law. Law is a formal written document. Ethics is unwritten principles. Law is interpreted by courts. It is interpreted by each individual ethics. Law is established by legislatures. Ethics is presented by philosophers, religious philosophers, professional groups, etc. Law is applicable to everyone. Ethics is a personal choice. Law is priority decided by court. Its priority determined by individual. Ethics. In law, court makes final decision. No external decision maker is there in ethics. Yeah, Aryan, very good. Ethics is natural law, you can say. Law is enforceable by police and courts. It is limited enforcement. Fine. So this is the ethics is not law. So we've talked about its primary differences. What is ethical behavior? And I'll talk about examples as well. So ethical behavior. Ethical behavior refers to actions that align with moral principles and values. So ethical behavior is actions which aligns with the moral principles and values. It involves making decisions based on fairness, honesty, and respect for others. Ethical behavior transcends the legal requirements. Yes, Pratik, very good. Can we say ethics are similar to sanskar that we get in our childhood? Yes. But that is sanskar is based on social norms also. Somewhere. But sanskar is, in a way, helps us to be ethical because this is what we've taken from our family society. Ethical behavior transcends legal requirements, focusing on what is right and just. It is cornerstone of building trust and maintaining integrity in personal and professional relationships. What are the examples? Respecting confidentiality, fair treatment. The doctor maintaining patient privacy, but by not disclosing medical information without consent is ethical behavior. Fair treatment manager ensuring equal opportunities for all employees regardless of race, gender, or background is ethical behavior. And we look at more examples. Following organization company rules. When you get hired, you sign a contract. If you're in a corporate, in government, you take oath. You take oath that I will abide by the constitution, that I'll serve my country in earnest, means you take an oath. There is not there is a kind of a contract which says that if you know how much timeline you will work for, if you go out, then. So when you get hired, you sign a contract, and most likely that contract will state that you must follow company rules. And when I say company rules in government, there is All India Service rules, Central Civil Service Conduct rules. These are the rules which you have agreed to abide by. A lot of those rules cannot be fully enforced, however, because the company just doesn't have the resources. For example, not spending your time at work. For example, again, very interesting here. And this is the biggest problem in the government as well. For example, not spending your time at work, surfing the internet, or not taking office supplies means, for example, unethical and ethical behavior. You're spending your time in office doing the work which is official, but many in the government offices do their personal work in offices. This is unethical behavior. Ethical behavior is you'll not do personal work. Second, returning a dropped wallet. Simple. What would you do if you're walking behind someone on a crowded sidewalk and their wallet fell out of their pocket? Most people are going to pick up the wallet and try to get the person's attention. That is the right thing to do. It is a small gesture, but it is an ethical one. So this is an example of ethical behavior. Small acts like this are what keeps society intact. It reminds us that there are unwritten rules of behavior in every society. Tushar is writing, not using government given vehicle for personal work. A very common thing in government. Very, very common thing. Ethical behavior, other example. Correcting a billing error. Have you heard you had a dinner in restaurant, found an error in the bill? Waiter or waitress would come over, who's overcharged us. We will definitely call, okay, when it is overcharged. We'll say, okay, this has not been there. Please reduce it. But when something has not been added, but you're billed for, then how many of you would ask the waiter to get that added? Here, a person with strong ethics and integrity will likely still correct the billing error, knowing that they agreed to price when placing the order. So, loyalty in relationships. Prashant is asking, very interesting, very good question. Not working in office, can it be unprofessional behavior rather than unethical? They're both. It is unprofessional and it is unethical both. Unprofessional because for the profession you've come, you're not doing the work for which you're being paid for. Unethical, why? It is dishonesty, lack of integrity at work. These are ethics, right? Which is expected. So both. Loyalty in relation, another very important. There are many types of relationship, friendship, colleagues, romantic partners, and of course the marriage. Despite their different manifestations, trust is a core component of each one. We know that we should never betray a friend. Stabbing a colleague in the back is the worst kind of office politics, especially if that person is a friend. So, of course, cheating on a romantic partner or spouse is unconscionable, right? And, something which cannot even comprehend. Ethical behavior, foreign aid. Now we are taking it to a larger level. Foreign aid. Ethical behavior example came, right? For a foreign aid. Also, question came this year. Ethical behavior is not limited to individuals. Foreign aid is defined as the international transfer of goods, services, or funding to another country or organization. Foreign aid is a way for economically developed countries to facilitate development of third world nations. It is an act of ethical behavior on a very large scale and as it has done tremendous good in many parts of the world. Setting transparent rules. In corrupt societies, government choose not to set transparent rules and around the conduct of business and access to political favors. Jyotsna is asking, can volunteering at a local shelter be called an ethical behavior? Volunteering for good cause is a personal, individual, good ethical behavior. But if someone is not doing that, is not an unethical behavior. Okay. By contrast, ethical societies will work to ensure that rules are clear and clearly followed by everyone. So this is setting transparent rules by the countries, by the governments, by the societies is ethical behavior. Now, what is unethical behavior? Unethical behavior refers to actions that violate moral principles, societal norms, or professional standards, often resulting in harm to others or undermining trust and integrity. Such behavior is typically characterized by a disregard for ethical values such as fairness, respect, and responsibility. These are examples which we'll go into few of them. Unethical behavior examples, gossiping. Aditya is asking, sir, is foreign aid ethical on humanitarian ground? Yes, on humanitarian ground. Surya Pratap is asking, is it still appropriate to use the term third world when we have terms like developing world? We have developing like global south. So this third world word is often used by the Western country. You read their articles, Economist, New York Times, very common. In India, we've made an attempt to use the word developing world, LDCs, global south countries. So third world in common use. So at our own level, we can avoid it. But as I've said, it's still in a very high use in the Western nations. So I would, at our own level, we can avoid it for sure. Gossiping is an example of unethical behavior. Workplace can be a petri dish of interpersonal dysfunction. So gossiping is one. You can read this example. Cheating. Cheating involves breaking the rules in order to give yourself an unfair advantage. In adolescence and adulthood, cheating might include asking someone else to write your assignment, or breaking the rules in sports to win, or in office work, delegating your work to someone else is also an unethical behavior. Is development while damaging environment ethical? No, it's unethical. Sahil is asking, mostly graduate students invest their time in volunteering work just to make their profile better so that they can get better opportunities. Would that be unethical? So if the volunteering work, of course, they want to make the profile good. There's nothing bad in that. But if the volunteer is when they are going there and sitting and not volunteering, that is unethical. But if they're going there and doing volunteer work thoroughly, at the same time, it is helping their profile, no problem with that. It is in that particular moment, if they're doing what they have to do, that is ethics. Komal is asking, sir, is European Union's carbon border tax unethical? If it had been unethical, then that country wouldn't have implemented. So this discussion here is that they what is the primary reason behind implementing it is to lesser the impact of environmental degradation in development. Okay, so carbon emissions, etc., should be reduced. So in a way, you can say that it is a ethical dilemma. Yes, Sahil says very beautifully, it's a kind of ethical dilemma, especially for the countries like India, who have their growth needs and plus the resources are limited, especially the energy needs currently. Around 65%, 60 to 65% of energy today is being thermal energy, right? And we cannot immediately transition to the renewable or other sources like nuclear. So these are ethical dilemmas. So when we'll go into ethical dilemmas, we'll talk about it. Okay. Very interesting. Aditya is asking, so helping others and recording on camera, is it unethical? Now, recording on camera to inspire others also to do it is ethical. Recording on camera so that you can become popular, and whereas the intention, again, your intention was to help. Intention was to send out the message to the masses or people you want to target. Good, it's ethical. Helping out is always ethical. Recording it on camera for your own commercial, if there's consent of the one who's you are helping, then it is not a problem, because it's again comes down to privacy part. Again, ethical dilemmas. We'll talk about it. Interesting questions. This is how I want you to be interactive in the class. Other behavior, unethical kickbacks or corruption. A kickback is making an illegal payment to someone to gain favorable treatment. For example, pharmaceutical company might hold a seminar on beautiful island resort. It invites selected government officials and provides free airfare and accommodation to each one for the weekend. It's a kickback. Or maybe approving a project and getting some percentage back, kickback. Very common in the government. Now, the next topic and the final topic of the day before we jump into the question is the essence of ethics. What is the essence of ethics? Now, the essence in itself means the essence of something means its core principles which define it. Core principles. So, essence is the core principles which define it. Essence of ethics means intrinsic nature or indispensable quality of ethics which determine its character. Essence. Like, what is the essence of this or that? Is the core principle or intrinsic nature or indispensable quality. So essence of ethics is indispensable quality of ethics or intrinsic nature of ethics which determines its character. So the essence of ethics refers to, let's cut this down, refers to its features, significance, and intrinsic or indispensable properties that characterize ethics. What is these essence? Now, the following properties, features can define the essence of ethics. Number one, defining what is good and bad. So ethics helps us. What is the essence of ethics? It helps us in deciding the goodness or badness of thoughts, conduct, and behavior. Ethics cannot be shaped and sustained in isolation. So a person is not born with an ethical system or moral setup. So external environment like society and culture, interaction with the genetic structure shapes it for the person. A person may be born in captivity, but to know what is ethical, she needs to live in society. Aryan is asking, is survival of fittest unethical? Like me securing seat in UPSC in my friend field. No. It's you cannot say it's survival of fittest also. You should let's survival of fittest be more in the area of Darwin theory itself, evolution only. Why I'm saying this is because here it's also about the opportunities. Let's say a friend and you would. It's not about that evolution is equal for like evolution is equal for everyone in a sense that humans are evolving, right? But here the opportunity, fair chance scenario. Yes, Nikhil, that is what I was talking about. So survival of fittest, let's not bring here, and let's not bring ethics here. This is one is competition, and one is uh, given the kind of environment you've come from, how you make use of your resources and opportunities to strive for a particular objective. Now we are talking about essence. We have talked about two, that ethics helps us in deciding goodness and badness of thoughts. This is essence, the properties which help us define the essence of ethics. Ethics cannot be shaped and sustained in isolation. Like a person is not born with ethical system or moral setup. An external, so we've read a person may be born in captivity, but has to be part of society so that to know what ethics is. Man is not only shaped. So when I say man, women is not shaped by ethics, but also shapes ethics. So man is not just himself or herself shaped by ethics, but they also shape ethics. For example, slavery and discrimination were earlier accepted as social norms, but not now. It is because of few great personalities which have brought about the changes, right? Ethics depend upon the context in which they are operating. They vary in their meaning. Very good, Aditya. Sati Pratha, like that, like women, widow remarriage, women education, all these like that. Ethics depend upon the context in which they are operating. So they vary in their meaning and intensity according to time, place, and person. Example, issues like abortion and homosexuality are judged differently in different countries. So ethics also depends upon the context in which they are operating, the countries, the situation, the environment, the social norms. It depends. Ethics are subjective in nature. That is, they are affected by an individual's emotions and perceptions also. Like cases of cow vigilantism, honor killings, etc., occur because of conflicts regarding ethics of various people. It's about what they are perceiving that this is right or wrong in that particular society. And okay, essence of ethics. Moving on, ethics originate from sense of justice prevailing in society. A child slaps another child. A third child watching finds it unethical because he or she believes in social justice and that every human is equal and has the right to live with dignity. So it originates from the sense of justice prevailing already in society. It's not like, okay, Article 21 has said this, that is why I'm stopping you. Universality is not in a sense of global acceptance. It's also about regional acceptance. Nikhil is asking that if ethics is subjective. In certain scenarios, like in India, abortion, as per the MTP Act, is legal. Ethics of it can be discussed, but as per the law, it is ethical, as per the law. But many countries, it is unethical and law does not accept it. But it does comes under, so it is also about the acceptance of, so universality also means the acceptance of that particular region, society. Like for example, caste issue. One or two families, but third person knows that this is not correct. Like for example, I'll give you example of V.D. Savarkar. When he was released in 1924 from Ratnagiri prison, he was told to stay in Ratnagiri, and thereafter 25-26 onwards, he started movement to stop, start inter-caste marriages, intermingling of castes. But many people, especially in that time, there was a lot of opposition. But eventually, but still, was it those who were sharing, means those who were opposing, him, they were outrightly unethical. So there is universality is not there. Means, so that is what I'm trying to say is you have to understand that basic difference. Okay, there's a lot of questions are pouring in. So let me just go through it. Polygamy in certain tribes, yes. So Lakshata is asking, ethics can be based on religion, but not all religions are ethical. Kind of like the value. Now, this is again a very tough term to use. You cannot say that. I'm not saying not all religions are ethical, but this is not what I've said. I've said ethics is not religion. Whatever religions say may not necessarily be ethical. But you're saying not all religions are ethical. Here you are basically taking a larger viewpoint. So kind of like the values and ethics. Yeah. So diagram is pretty much the same subset. Aditya Prakash, polygamy in certain tribes, yes, is accepted norm. Very good. Might be ethical for them. There is certain society in Uttarakhand and in polyandry is also, accepted because there the sex ratio is pretty much disturbed. Abortion, yes, which we discussed. Shivani is asking, so the issues like transgender are also not ethical, like harassing them, not giving them equal opportunity. Exactly. That is why the Act for Transgender had come out, providing them the third gender. There is now forms legally everywhere you see the third gender is there. So that is there. Nikhil, so one thing can be ethical and non-ethical for different people. Then how does one say that what is right and what is not? So it's not one thing is ethical. So it's about societies. For example, there are societies which are conservative. There are societies which are very modern, which do not. So ethics also depend upon, of course, it is universal in a sense that the society which accepts it, they are universally accepted it. But then there are certain sections, societies, because since there is so much diversity, it might be like, for example, homosexuality. There are many countries which criminalizes it. For them, it is not. But for India, when you ask our people, it is ethical. It is something which even after removal of 377 and even before that, it was intrinsic. Okay, it is fine. Ayushi is asking, Ireland changed its abortion law after women died during childbirth who could be saved if a child was aborted. So I think while ethics is subjective, it's something that is not and should not be constant. That is what I'm saying. Universally accepted does not mean that it won't be changed. It can be changed with the changing of thought dimensions, the viewpoint of people, because that is where the point came up, and I'll bring you that. What is that? That ethics is also human also shape ethics. So it's about shaping ethics. When I say universal, it does not mean time is there. So shape, for example, homosexuality in India was criminalized, but now it is accepted because now humans have shaped ethics to change the way we think that no, it should be decriminalized. Very important point is this. Let me go through some other. Garima, as often societal norms and religious belief shape ethics with people adhering to rules like not stealing or harming others. Sometimes due to societal pressure, how do these factors interplay in forming and following ethical principles? There are a lot of factors at play. So this is a very detailed question where I have to go. If you can ask me the same on my email. Again, I'm sharing it with everyone here. So everyone can see on their screen. You can reach out to me for your doubts, issues. As and when I get time, I'll surely reply to you. It's nimish.kapoor@upscprep.com. You can reach out to me here. So there are a lot of points which I have to complete the session and also ask you a question. So ethical standards may transcend the narrow stipulations of law or rule, book and code of regulation. May transcend. So many acts of omission and commission may not violate the law as such. Still, they may run counter to ethics. For example, police not helping the victims as the incident has happened outside the area of jurisdiction. Law does not tell them that they should do it, but it's ethics which is beyond the law. Ethics is maintained and sustained by sense of responsibility and not mere accountability to some external agency, but also to something within. If someone is injured and I'm passing by, it's something within also inspires me to help them. So ethics is also about that. Ethics is prescriptive in nature. Ethics preach a certain kind of behavior to us. It tells us how people should behave, how ethics are often prescribed without any reason or explanation. This undermines people's respect and value for ethical behavior. For instance, traditional values like family values are declining among the youth because their significance and rationale are not explained to them. So other essence of ethics, descriptive. It is descriptive discipline. It examines existing standards of behavior of individuals and community. Ethics scrutinizes voluntary human action. So ethics not only deals with voluntary human action. So it only deals it's actions when the person acts with free will without coercion. For instance, so this is very important. Ethics scrutinizes voluntary human action. For instance, if a person is made to do something unethical at gunpoint, she cannot be called unethical. Ethics operates at different levels. So it is like individual, organizational, socio-cultural, political, and international. That is what, again, which resolves your question that if it is universal, when I say universal, it is individually, could be universal, organizational, universal, like Tata Code of Conduct is for Tata organization. Socio-cultural, political, international. But ethics of any level affect the ethics at other levels. Yeah, this is a very interesting. Jyotsna has asked some members of parliament, I won't again name it, fled to Germany on diplomatic passport after allegation. This is it's not just unethical, but it's criminal. Okay. So under which it's many topics it would come under. So, it's outraging women modesty, prevention of sexual harassment. It would come under outright unethical morality, integrity, because a public servant, right? Lack of so many levels of ethics. Human right. So it is like defining. Every action would be unethical here because this is very broad. This is the worst level of unethical behavior. Okay, so let's have today's question, and I have 7 minutes for you to write it down. And at 8:55, we will discuss this. Question is, and after 5 minutes, I'll start discussing what does this question mean to you. Ethics is knowing the difference between you have the right to do and what is right to do. Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do. This is 2022 question, UPSC. I want you to write it. Write down points if you want. Write an answer if you want. Surya Pratap Singh is asked, CS a personal slapping an MP, for example. There's a case where so this is outright an unethical behavior because it is very simply a case of personal conduct. I have had discussion. The person in charge of the airport at that time was my batchmate. I had a talk with him. And anyone in uniform should know at wearing that uniform what is. So the code of conduct clearly defines what is your duty. That is primary. Personal emotions far behind. Like, for example, I've conducted elections. I've conducted, and in that scenario, I do not keep my political affiliations or my interests ahead. For me, it is to conduct fair elections. that everything is, I do not stop anyone who is from this party or that party. And when I'm in uniform, it is to conduct free and fair election. When I'm in airport, security and protection of each one is my duty. So it's outrightly unethical behavior. I hope you're all writing. So yeah, I'll give you, yeah, you have 4 to 5 more minutes. Think over it. Interesting question. Someone is asking, can I write it later after revising today? If you have urgent work, then you may. But if you have time, then write it now because we'll discuss also. Are you getting me what am I simplifying it for you? Because ethics is a very difficult topic to enter, but once you enter, it's very enjoyable topic. I hope I am simplified it it's just the initial class and that too very introductory thing. But as we move on, it'll be very, very interesting for you. Many of you have written question and answer. Again, I would request that you please write your questions in chat section only, because having two tabs open parallelly and keeping a tab on both may be difficult. So chat is where it becomes more interactive in real time. I have a lot of questions, so I'll only answer once I finish this session now, because I have to abide by the time as well. 9 p.m. I'll strictly. So I hope you would have got fair idea of what I've asked. Let's go into the discussion of the same. Let's have the points. On what lines you're thinking? Later. Sanjay, your answer would. So those who questions I have not answered, that is why I've shared my email ID. You can ask the question there, or I'll also provide my personal Telegram ID as well. You can still ask me there as well. So don't think that your question wasn't answered because of the time issue. I may not be, but I want you to. So I'm sharing my Telegram ID as well. You can reach out to me there as well. Okay, let's start the discussion of the question. Ethics is not knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do. So the question essence of the question is, the question says that I know that this is my right, but it is not about that. Ethics is not about that. This is my right. This is what is the right thing to do. So here, yes, knowing our powers and not misusing it. Very good. Very good. So now one by one, let's take up. It's right versus duties. Very good. So we can take the answers into right versus duties. So Nikhil is saying throughout human history, there have been practices that were allowed by the then governing authorities, but were not considered ethical, like medical experiment. Very good. Nazi Germany. So you've taken the history at that time considered right, but it was not the right thing to do. What could be the example of acts which is legal but still unethical? I'll talk about it. Hemant, keeping emotion aside while on duty. Yes, yes, that is a very good. But then this is not the right. So we should not include that emotion. So I'm talking specifically what right you have, but what is right thing to do. So let us go into that. So Neha is saying that yes, it is a huge difference. Our constitution on what is right is not universal, whereas in opposite is universal. We'll talk about that. Let's talk about specific areas. Sahil is saying taking due advantage of public schemes and not letting the intent. Very good point. Public schemes, let's say subsidy. So there was campaign give up subsidy. Let's say I'm a very rich person. I'm using that subsidy, free electricity. Given an opportunity, give up subsidy. Let's say I have a right to continue with the subsidy, but given my financial situation, it is ethical for me to give up subsidy. Very good, Sahil. Very nice. Similarly, schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, PM, Ayushman Bharat scheme, where the right is to, they have right to free treatment, 5 lakh, but they are generating wrong invoices and collaborating with the hospitals to for unfair advantage. Very good point. So these are the kind of points, and let me just go further. Right to abortion in certain scenarios. So this cannot be Lakshita, cannot be straightforward. For example, now right to abortion. Now this is very complex, so you shouldn't go in that dimension because that is in certain situation right to abortion. But let's that is we'll talk about it separately. But this is not the right example. Aditya, treatment of prisoners of war. Yes. But it is under the Vienna Convention. So right thing to do is not to treat them badly. And what is right to do is also the same. Jyotsana, handling of criminals. Handling of criminals, you say that they are not treated nicely, but that is not the right? So that is again incorrect. Okay, Tushar, very interesting here is surrogacy in some societies legal. However, taking away a child from a mother who is born, now in this, you are confusing. Surrogacy is an agreement on which that person has also come to an agreement that yes, I can bear your child. And when that is an agreement. So ethical, unethical here is because that person has a knowledge that I am going to give up after 9. So in this case, it is ethical only. Tanishka, accusing the criminal and punishing without and due process of law. No, not a right example. For example, go on for a vacation, polluting environment. Is it the right polluting environment? No. So it is again not the part of this. You shouldn't write this in the answer. Creamy layer taking advantage. Creamy layer does not have the right. Non-creamy layer. So creamy layer how? Let's say you would have said, Lakshita, that OBC reservation is there and it is for non-creamy layer. But creamy layer using OBC reservation by manipulating documents. That. How does one include a bit of theory before putting these examples? So very good question is how do we put a little bit of theory? To be honest, 10 marker, 150 words, not too much. Just it is after one statement directly jumped. You can write that there are various, there is a huge difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do. And it has been stated, be it our constitution and various examples or government schemes. And that is how you list down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've gone through all, but I still am not fully satisfied. Now let's jump on to what should be the rights given by Constitution. For example, Article 19 is freedom of speech and expression, right to demonstrate, hold. But this won't mean people blocking roads. It means abiding by the reasonable restriction. Article 25 says freedom to profess, practice, and propagation of religion. This does not give right to anybody to forcibly convert people to other religions. Then there are fundamental rights. Then that there are rights, but equally duties also has to be performed. Someone who does not perform duties but expect all the rights. Right to property. Subsidies we've talked about. Right to property, how? It's a legal right, right? It's not a fundamental right. It's a legal right. It does not mean that someone would under PM Pradhan Mantri the scheme for the building houses, which is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, urban and rural. Under that, I can claim my right to property. Of course, I can claim, but if it is not given timely, I cannot start protesting against it. Given the condition, if I'm matching it and everything, due process of law is there. So, right to deny treatment, could that be equal to suicide almost, which is illegal, right? So this is ethical dilemma where we'll talk about euthanasia, Lakshita, right? Article 300A, yes, that is what right to property is under legal rights. So Shah sir, can we write a Supreme Court opinion in which judge said that SCs who have raised up in the secular hierarchy should give way for their financially poor peers? We are unnecessarily, I think, so complicating this answer. A rich MP has the right to draw salary, but she can refuse it to accept or use that money for uplifting lower strata. No, it's the right thing to do. Yes. So, for example, MP lads, the right is that they are getting 5 crore MP, but right thing to do is using it for people's benefit. Right? For example, what is the right? Right to levy tax by government is right. But use right thing to do is right to levy it it equally in terms of as per the financial. So that is the right thing to do. That charging more from the richer and lesser from the poor. Progressive tax. Yes. This is how you start thinking, right? This is how. If you can give such examples, that is where your answer would look good. So there are a lot of people have come out with their so whatever I've told, if this is, I hope you've understood how to approach this. What is the right, but what is the right thing to do? Fine. So this was the question for the day. And since it was first session, only one question, tomorrow I'll come out with the 2 questions. And that is where we'll conclude our today's session. I hope session was good. At least because time being limited, I want, since it's just the starting of the ethics, but I've tried to, make presentation interactive, and the further presentations will be even more interactive, to the point, very clear, so you can understand. So good. Here examples were being demanded to show that what was right and what. Okay. So given that overwhelming response, if anyone I have not answered, I'm sorry about it. But as I've told you, you can reach out to me on Telegram or my email ID, and I'll try to get back to you before the next session. Anyhow, thank you so much. All the best, and let's continue with the journey. And every time I tell, there are people who've heard this quote, those who are new, I'll tell you one single thing again. From wherever you belong, it doesn't matter. From what is your background, it doesn't matter to me. But a person is limited by his or her thought, not by his or her potential. Remember that. So let's continue on this journey and let's keep challenging ourselves every single day striving for the best, learning, coming with an open mind, and being ethical to become a good civil servant in future. Thank you and have a very good night. You take care. Bye. And see you. And I'll be uploading lecture immediately after disconnecting. Thank you.